Yeah.
Okay. We have a different kind of episode today. I'm here with Nick from Hunting Nostalgia. How are you?
I'm good, man. You got that right. It's definitely a different kind of episode because I'm a different kind of guy.
You are.
What's up, man? It's awesome to see you.
Thanks, you too. So, what is Hunting Nostalgia?
Hunting Nostalgia is a on-the-road documentary style television show that we created about 4 or 5 years ago. Right, it was a weird time. It was a year before the pandemic. Okay, so we created this show where myself and my uncle at the time, we were searching in attics and basements in different states, looking for that feeling of nostalgia. And when you hear the word nostalgia, each person has a different thought of what that means in their head. Like nostalgia is not the same to everybody, and that's what makes Hunting Nostalgia so cool. The show is because it ranges from such a vast range of interests. Like I'm a toy guy. I love wrestling. I love Star Wars. I love 80s toys and stuff like that. But sometimes, like I'll find something on the show like this. I'll find in a barn attic, I'll find an original 1977 Mr. Rogers trolley. It's wooden. It's a wooden trolley. Like the ones
Whoa.
that came after this, yeah, the ones that came after this, they were plastic. Okay. This sucker is wooden. It's a wooden trolley. Okay. And whenever I found this, someone was watching the show and they said, Nick, I know the drummer from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He's the only living member of the entire trio that played the music and all the sound effects for Mr. Rogers. His name is Bobby Rossthorn, and he's the only living member. And I got to spend a day with him talking about the greatest television entertainer of all time, Fred Rogers. Like, it was one of the greatest, and it had nothing to do with toys, you know?
Yeah.
So the answer to your question is Hunting Nostalgia is a show about your childhood and my childhood, no matter how different our childhoods may have been.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have similar childhoods because you were born early 80s, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
I was born, I'm about 10 years older. So, yeah, you're mostly 80s stuff.
Yeah.
And, and, and I know you love wrestling.
Love it. Love it. I was born into Hulkamania, brother. I had no choice. None.
Oh
Like
my
it was
goodness.
like, listen, here you go. You're born. Oh, you know who's the most popular man in the world? It's this big yellow and red dude who saves everybody's life. And I became instantly obsessed. I have a full cardboard cutout of Hulk Hogan staring right at me. Right.
It's funny because people now are like, who's your favorite superheroes? And Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and stuff. He didn't really, for me, my superheroes were like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and the Ultimate Warrior and stuff. Because
Ooh,
there were cartoons about them. They seemed superhuman and they were portrayed as superhuman. So yeah, I'm the same way. This is one of my favorite things. It's just a notebook. It's a Hulk Hogan notebook.
oh, look at I don't have the Hulkster, but I have just when you think you know all the answers, I change the
Oh my
questions.
goodness. Oh my
And it's
goodness.
unused. Look, it's brand new. Nobody ever.
Oh.
It's nuts. Like if I had this as a kid, well, first off, I'd have definitely had boogers coming out of his nose.
Oh
I'd have
yeah,
had
he's a bad guy.
mustache.
But so with 80s figures,
Yeah.
it seemed like there was these big ones. Is this LJN? Who's it? This is
Yes.
the
Yeah.
wrong. There's the bigger ones that are, I'm not sure, about 8 inches, and then there was these little ones here.
Yes.
I
Those
got
are
the
the
ring.
Hasbro's. Now, so this is an interesting story. I'll do a little. I'm gonna move this here. We'll walk over here. So over here, this is my actual. This is my main interest. This was my main collection as a kid. Were the LJN wrestling superstars. Okay, so these guys. First off, they're gorgeous. I mean, they are beautiful looking figures,
Wow.
but they don't move. They're literally dog chew toys. They're just rubber hunks.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the reason that they actually were like that is because in 1983, all of the big toy companies were vying to make a figure for Hulk Hogan. They're like, oh man, this is going to be the biggest thing in the world. Like, who's going to get to make the first Hulk Hogan figure? Which is kind of funny. The first Hulk Hogan figure was made for Rocky 3. It was
That's right, because he was Thunderlips. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He did not go with the Remco line. Like, people used him with like Ric Flair and all those guys, like the Remco AWA wrestling figures. But this guy was the very first Hulk Hogan wrestling figure ever made. And it was made by a company that wasn't making wrestling toys. You know, they were making movie toys. So then they came up with this idea. All right, we got Hulk Hogan. So now what are we going to do? They're like, let's make a cage. Let's make a steel cage with these little bendy wrestlers. So then they came up with this concept. This was the first concept of what the wrestling toys were actually supposed to be. They were supposed to be small and bendy, you know, so kids can play with them. But whenever Toys R Us, when they saw these guys, when they actually saw the LJN wrestlers, they were obsessed. They're like, there is nothing on the market that looks like that. So it was actually Toys R Us request to make those figures as big as they are. And I thought that was crazy. And then, yes, then these suckers came out. This was a little bit past my era of buying toys. It went like a little bit past it, but I still had to have them. You know what I mean? But yeah, the LJNs are my number one.
So when did you start actually collecting things?
Well, I didn't know that it was a collection. Like, it was just my toys. Like, I just had my toys. And like, my brothers and sisters, they had cool stuff too. But when my mom would say, hey, it's time for a yard sale or garage sale, they'd be like, oh, I want $5. Let me sell my toys. And I was like, do not touch my toys. They are I didn't need $5. I did not need it. I wanted my toys. So I just held on to them my whole life. And then once the show started, like, people call me and email me, because what I'll do is I'll be somewhat of a middleman between these people and like where they want their final destination of these toys to be. Most of the time, if it's something I'm interested in, I'll buy everything and I'll play with it for the rest of my life. Like, but sometimes it's stuff that I can't really afford or it's not my interest. So what I'll do is I will connect them with a local vintage toy store in their area I'll help them feel secure about where they're selling their stuff, you know, because people who don't know this world of collecting, they can easily be ripped off very easily. And they know I have everything that I have ever wanted anyways. I have no need to rip anybody off. Like, they know that I'm doing it because I love it. Like, I love just that feeling. Like, sure, I may have like 4 or 5 Hulk Hogan figures, but then whenever I find one in like an attic of a barn, it's like, yeah, that's cool. And it's fun, you know? So that's what I'll do. I'll help people find a home, or I'll buy them for their toys that are just collecting dust, you know?
Do people just give you things?
Yeah, a lot of times people are just like, Nick, come to my home and just help me clean out my basement. I don't know what I got. So I will. For instance, and this was one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. This super sweet lady, she lives very close to me, and she was calling me. I don't even know how she got my phone number, but she was calling me from a landline, and she was leaving messages on my phone. And she was like, hi, Nick, I watch your show. She says, I really would like you to come and help me clean out all of my son's toys. So the first thing I asked her, and I always call back. That's the one thing I always call, no matter if it's my interest or if it's not my interest, because I don't want the calls to stop coming in. You know, when I stop calling back, that's when people will stop calling me. So I called her back, and she's like, oh, honey, first off, she's 91 years old. And I asked her how old her sons were, and she's like, oh, they're like almost 50-year-old men. I'm like, okay, kind of an interesting era of toys. You know, who knows? It could be G.I. Joes. Who knows? So I asked her, and she starts naming literally the worst toys ever made. She's like, oh, I have Lincoln Logs. And I'm like Lincoln Logs, I know. They're like mold vacuums. They're horrible toys. Tanker toys and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I have no interest in any of this stuff. The very last thing she said was, she goes, I also have a bunch of NASA toys. And I'm like, ugh, still not my stuff.
Who
Well,
cares?
yeah. So I walk into this 91-year-old lady's home, and I'm going to bring you over here. As I'm walking up, she's sitting on the porch in her robe, and it's a late summer day, late summer, and I walk into her home, and her NASA toys was this. The
Oh my
complete.
God.
Oh, I'm like, listen, lady, complete. It is so complete. It has the foam inside of the trash compactor. It's in there. I don't know if it'll come. Yeah, it'll come out. Look, dude.
God.
Yeah. So this tells you these kids didn't play with this foam. Do you see the foam?
Yeah.
I can smell the
my
foam.
God.
So she had the boxes, she had the directions, and I'm like, ma'am, I cannot take this from your house, because if I do, it's grand larceny. I'm like, I have to give you something. And she's like, I'm 91 years old. She says, I don't need anything. She says, I just want you to help me get this out of my house and appreciate it. So for the past 3 years, I've helped her cover her pool every fall.
Okay. So you're paying back another way. That's nice.
Yeah, but like she would not take money. Like she's like, no, no, no. I'm like, so then that day she's like, well, I am covering my pool. So I'm like, where are the cinder blocks?
And but the thing about you is you don't sell this stuff. You just
No.
you keep it, and that what about like if you have like doubles or triples or something? You just what do you do then?
I bring them to vintage toy stores so they can be sold for a reasonable amount. Like my number one, and trust me, I'm interlinked with all of the toy stores around Pittsburgh. But my number one store, the store that I have partnered with for the past 3 years, is Pop Culture Comics on Mount Royal Boulevard. The owner went to high school with me, and I didn't even realize it until I walked in there, and he's like, hey, dude. He's like, we went to high school together. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, it was Ken. Like, he's a
I
great
know
man.
what you're talking about because I'm there all the time. That's exactly hey guy.
What's up, brother? Have you ever met a more honest dude? Like, he is one of the greatest.
He's a cool dude, yeah.
And so, like, I want to help these and also D&E Collectibles, Too Groovy, Ides. There are a ton of really great vintage stores here in the Burgh that you got to go to, because if we don't support these stores, they will be gone, and then you will have no choice but to buy from eBay, and you don't want to do that. I have thousands of figures. I have thousands of pieces in my collection. I have hundreds of different collections. Never once, and I don't know any other collector that can say this, never once have I ever purchased anything off of my phone or off of the computer. Never. I have found everything in this room. I found everything in that room, and I can remember where I found it and who gave it to me. That's what's the most important thing, is the experience.
Your show is so fun because we are living. At least when I'm watching it, you're like, oh, let's go through this attic, and it's like, oh, hey, there's a Darth Vader carrying case from the 70s. Yeah, it's like, oh, I wonder what's in it. And you open up, and it's full of figures. I'm like, yes! I'm like, it's like when the Steelers score a touchdown or something. I'm like, yes!
I know, dude. Well, like that place, that is a compound, okay? It is a compound of multiple different barns, and I have only gotten into like that much of it. There is so much more. I have found Masters of the Universe, Star Wars. As I'm just walking in, all over the steps is just Empire Strikes Back cards. I'm like, where am I? It was crazy. Such a neat experience that I've been able to have through this show. And I should tell people where they can watch it. It's on Armstrong, the neighborhood channel, channel 100 in 6 different states. But I can't afford Armstrong. They pay me, and I can't afford their cable. I'm not gonna lie, but you can watch Hunting Nostalgia for free on YouTube after it airs on TV. So just go to YouTube and search Hunting Nostalgia, and please follow, subscribe, whatever the things we do on our computer.
Like and subscribe, yeah, whatever they say.
I'm not a technological guy.
Yeah, my big thing I would say out of everything is the Star Wars. As a kid, I grew up with all those Kenner toys. This is my big thing is Millennium Falcon. That's like the signature thing. And the thing is, like, you could spend so much money on these things. I'm sure I know you go to those toy stores.
Yeah.
those the toy shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And people, some of it seems like it's bragging. You know, it's like, oh, I have this mint condition thing in the box that's like thousands of dollars. Like, okay, cool. Who's going to spend thousands of dollars
Nobody.
on a toy? Yeah,
In 2023, nobody. Nobody.
it's crazy.
But you know, I have rules that I set specifically for myself because, like, when you go to these toy shows, there is so many things that you're never going to have a chance to see again. You know, like I've been looking for, and I'll show you this again. I've been looking for years for, you remember the original 12 back display where they would turn the Star Wars figures, where they would turn this sucker?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been looking for the cardboard backing for this for years, years, and I have seen it many times for sale. Oh no, you see the Hulk. So, for years I've been looking for that cardboard backing, and the only place I ever find it is at toy shows, and they always want like $80. And listen, I'm not spending $80 on a piece of cardboard. It smells like cigarettes. No way. No way. I'm not a fool. Like, no way, you know, but here's the other thing. If that is something that people do that it makes them happy, I'm all for it. You know, I can't do it because I'm like, you know, I have too much to begin with, you know, but if that's your game, and also if your game is buying stuff online, like I have super close buddies that's what they do. Like they grow their collections from eBay. And he's like, listen, man, I don't agree with it, but I understand his point of view. He's like, listen, he's like, every morning for me, it's like Santa Claus just came down my chimney and left stuff on the front porch. That's cool. You know, I understand that feeling. I don't do that, but I understand it.
Yeah. But yeah, you can get the mint version of anything, which is cool. But
Yeah.
to me, it's like it's better if it's like looks worn or has missing pieces or something like that. And hey, yeah, I'm not rich. I'm not spending thousands of dollars on something. I'll buy it if it's damaged or missing something or something like that. I kind of like it better that way.
I am fine with it. Like this guy, I had this. This was the one toy. Like people always say, "What's your holy grail? What's your holy grail?" And I never really had one except for one thing. In 1986, WWF made a Stretch Armstrong style of figure. Okay,
No
like
way.
yeah, you can stretch it. This is the Hot Scott, the rowdy one, Roddy Piper. Well, I saw him at a toy show, and the guy had these are really expensive toys. You know, they're really expensive. He had a $30 price tag on him. I'm like, dude, what? Like, for real? He said, yeah. He goes, look, if you look at his foot, he has a tiny little pinhole. I don't care. I don't care. What's inside of these? Instead, like Stretch Armstrong had like glue inside of them. What is inside of these is powder. Like these are super soft, okay? And being super soft in this super thin rubber, these suckers break like instantly. In 1986, I got one for my Christmas present, and there's one photograph of me, and I'm standing on top of remember Pipeworks? Like you'd put together pipes and it would make like
Yeah.
I was standing on top of Pipeworks and I was dancing the Walk Like an Egyptian, and I was holding the Junkyard Dog, baby. He's the king of the WWF. And he was my favorite. I loved Hulk Hogan, but the Junkyard Dog, for some reason, was my absolute favorite wrestler. And I had him. And I can remember opening my grandparents' refrigerator, and I pulled both of his arms, and on Christmas Day, they tore underneath. I was only like 4, you know what I mean? So I didn't, but I ruined it instantly, and I could never find him again. I could never find a JYD anywhere because in Pittsburgh, in southwestern Pennsylvania, we have a big problem with in your attics, stuff melts. In your basement, stuff molds here, okay? So these guys, they would shrink. He would shrink and get super hard, and then he'd crack, and it was useless. Then one day, I will never forget it. I thought somebody was messing with me. My phone rang and it said Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And I'm like, that's weird. I don't live near Latrobe. I was like, what's this? You know, I answered, and the first sentence out of this man's mouth, he said, I got something that you're looking for. And I said, what? He goes, I got something that you want. And I said, what could it be? And he goes, I have the JYD Stretch 1986 LJN figure. And I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, oh crap, he's definitely going to want $1,000. That's not happening with this toy sniffing weirdo. So I'm like, listen, man, I'm like, what do you want? Like, what are you after here? He goes, I want to trade. And when somebody says, I want to trade, it piques my interest because I know that that person has the same style of appreciation that I have. So, needless to say, I drove to Latrobe, and as I pulled in, this man, his house, his actual job, if I can get this out of here, his actual job is he works at a cemetery. So it was October, and I pull into his house, and he has in his yard, it's filled with real caskets, real miniaturized caskets. Because whenever a company will sell like a funeral home caskets, they bring in small samples so people can look at them. Like, oh, we'll buy 50 of these, So they're all in his yard. I'm like, uh-oh, am I going to end up in one of these? Like I was freaking out. And then I went in and sitting on the table.
In the box!
And that's not all. So like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on the verge of tears. And he's like, he goes, open it. It's pristine.
Oh my God.
It's pristine. And then if that doesn't make it like, oh my brother, he is my, like, I love them. And then if that doesn't take the cake, he goes, oh wait, I got something else for you. And I'm like, I'm already on top of the world. He has the Hulk Hogan too.
Hulk Hogan. Oh my goodness.
I know. And he's perfect. Like, I'm like, and like, look at the box. It's so nice and perfect. Like,
beautiful.
So what he wanted, and I'm like, listen, man, what are you after? Like he said, okay. He said, I want a complete mint condition Ecto 1 from 1985. I had it in my closet. I'm like, done. I'll be there tomorrow. I just so happen to have it. It's like, I'll be there tomorrow.
That's the car, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Ghostbusters car, it had the claw that comes out of the back. I'm like, are you serious? That's all you want? Done deal. But it meant as much to him as this meant to me. And that's why it was a good trade, and I'll never forget it. And that kind of stuff happens. Hulkamania running wild, brother.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
It is crazy. I'm very, very lucky. Very, very lucky indeed.
Isn't that crazy that, the internet and Twitter and all that seems all, hate and meanness and stuff like that. But then there's stuff like this where you could connect with people. I was showing your show to my sister who also collects. She's going crazy. Now she was she's a couple years older than you. She was into the strawberry shortcake, Barbies, Rainbow Bright stuff. But anyway, she's looking at it, just, oh my God, he has WWF hockey game. Like, I didn't even know that existed. Oh my goodness, honestly, this is the coolest thing ever.
It might be like, I was born right into the also, Hulkamania, and then 10 years later, I was born into the 91 Stanley Cup, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my worlds have collided. And like, I'm obsessed with two things. I'm obsessed with, multiple things, but I would say there's two definite categories in my life: wrestling and hockey. And this sucker completes.
Oh my God.
It's the toy I played with more than any other toy in my life. And I got it at the greatest department store in the world.
Oh, look at that Hills shopping cart.
Hills is where the toys are. And you know what I had to have? I'm like, you know what? I got to have everything in there have a Hills sticker on it,
Oh, yeah.
So that's my display. I'm like, I found this in the abandoned Uniontown Mall. There was like 60 of them there. And and it's funny, like, I know you have an appreciation for like the packaging of things and all that stuff. Well, my mom always asked me, she's like, why don't you throw away that stuff? Why don't you throw it away? Because this is the storage room of the Hunting Nostalgia Studio. Wow. It's every toy I've ever bought in my life. Look, Kmart,
Oh my
344,
goodness.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Like there's children's palace things in here. It's and that's what that stuff is. It's mine. I'm not into selling that stuff. I wouldn't sell that for $1 million.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
my history. It's my life. Like no way.
Children's Palace was the best store ever. Oh my god, that was like Toys R Us on crack. Oh my
I know.
god.
And the good thing
Oh,
about like we were lucky here in Pittsburgh because Toys R Us, and we didn't know this as kids, Toys R Us had such a stranglehold on all of the contracts for toys. If you remember as a kid, you'd be like, why does this store always have just the same guy? Like, why? Why
yeah,
does it
yeah.
have like, they never have what I want? It was on purpose. It was all on
Mm,
purpose. They're like, oh, well, if Kmart sells it, we're not selling it. And if you sell it, we're not going to allow it to be sold here. It's
yeah,
crazy, man. It
yeah.
was crazy.
What you're married, right? And have
Yes.
kids. Do the
3.
kids do the kids have are allowed to play with stuff, or do you
Oh,
tell them stay away?
oh no. That's why it's all out. Like, I took the door off my curio here. Like, I don't care what it's worth. Like, it's not worth anything because I'm not selling it. So yes,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
play with everything here. Like,
Aw,
but that's the thing. Like, they don't. Like, all of this stuff is so common to them. Like, walking in here and seeing all of this is like, that's just dad's crap. Like, it's just so basic. But then whenever like I'll have my buddies, I'll be like, bring your kids. Like, you can walk around here like a museum for hours. I'm like, bring your
yeah.
kids. When they walk in, they go, they all think I work for a toy company. They think they're like, oh my gosh, he works for a toy company. Nah, just a dork, man.
Now, does your wife? I mean, I heard you say one time, like, if you're a collector, your wife has to be very patient and stuff. How nice is she about you bringing in all this stuff?
Well, before I was being paid for it, it was no. She is very cool about all of it. Here's the one thing I learned this long ago. Do not ever clean anything that has a lot of bird poop on it in her shower because I almost died, dude. I was almost killed. Like this ring right here. So this is the most valuable wrestling ring that has ever been sold. It's the 1995 yellow King of the Ring Hasbro ring. It's like worth like $800. Okay.
Wow.
Well, I found that and I found this in a barn, and there was that much bird poop on it from 1984. It was caked, but it came out. They came out beautifully. But I thought, I'll clean this in the shower. That's a perfect spot. Perfect place. And my wife is the most girly girl on the planet, and all of a sudden I hear her running. I'm like, what? I'm like, what is going on? Like, I hear her boom, 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 boom. I'm like, she yells, bird poop. I thought I was dead. I'm like, I'm sorry. It smelled so bad. I don't know what I was thinking. But I have promised that will never, ever, ever happen again.
Yeah. Yeah. My problem is I'm out of space. I've used every little square inch of my man cave downstairs. I've had to move it upstairs, so now I got a bunch of stuff up here. But I gotta be. It's like negotiations. It's like I gotta negotiate with the wife. It's like, okay, what rooms am I allowed? What space am I allowed to put this stuff in? Because I'm running out of space. So.
I know the pain. That's funny. Yeah, you do have to decide what goes out and what doesn't. I have boxes and boxes of stuff in my storage that I do feel bad about. I'm like, I'd love to find, but a lot of that stuff is my actual childhood toys. Because a lot of these, like the LJNs here, like if you were mean to Hulk Hogan, I was biting your nose off. Like I was finding your finger and I was going to chew off your nose, like, so my actual childhood toys, they're still here too, but they're not as quite as good a shape as the ones that I display.
So you never got rid of your childhood stuff?
No.
See, that's awesome.
Never. Well, one time here, there is one time all of a sudden, I was probably like 17, okay? And I was back at my parents' house from college, and just so happens they were having a yard sale. You know, I knew none of my stuff would be there, so I didn't care. So I'm sitting in my room and I look outside and I see a guy holding up one of my LJN wrestlers in my underwear. I run up the hill and I go, whoa, these are not for sale. I was like, I don't know how these got here. My sister, she put them up, and I'm like, what else did you sell? What did you sell of mine? She sold, and this hurts. This is the only 2 items I ever lost, ever in my life. She sold my entire Masters of the Universe collection, and she sold my entire G.I. Joe collection. Okay.
Oh, no.
And that one was really rough. Okay. But I had all my other stuff, Star Wars, wrestling. Okay. So I made it a mission to get back each and every single item that she sold of mine. And I did it at one place. Right here.
Whoa.
This is the headquarters that I lost from G.I. Joe. A woman who was watching the show, she saw my post and she's like, not only do I have it, she's like, I have the box too.
Oh, wow.
One place, man. One place.
Wow.
It's nuts. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But I really do think that people see my appreciation for this stuff and they feel more comfortable selling it to me than they would selling it either online or independently at a toy store, you know?
That's happened to me too. More with the sports stuff, with like the Steelers stuff or Penguin stuff. They'll be like, I know you'll take good care of it. I don't mind just you having it. Just just put it to good use. It's like,
yeah,
awesome.
And you do, and you do that. You know, that's why people keep coming to you. You know.
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah. What are you still trying to get? Is there anything that you still really want to get?
A national television deal. every couple of months, I have negotiations with like the History Channel or Discovery Channel, and there is one that really hurts me. Right before the pandemic, I signed an agreement with Cineflex Media, the same company that makes American Pickers, Property Brothers, all those different places. I signed a no-compete contract with them, so I wasn't allowed to speak to any other networks or anybody else about what I was doing. Within 2 days of signing that contract, I get a phone call, and it's from A&E. It's from a different casting company, Rachel Macy Casting. And she goes, we want to hire you for an A&E show about in-ring wrestling collectibles. I wasn't even allowed to speak to her.
Oh, because you signed with the other. Oh,
2 days.
Man.
2 days I lost the job like that. And now that show, if you know the show I'm talking about, that show now doesn't have a host. If you look closely, there's no host because that host would
have been you. Oh.
You know how that feels every day? It's rough. So anyways, but I'm blessed with being on Armstrong. I love it. You know, YouTube's fine for now. But yeah, I definitely want more. But I would say if I'm still looking for an item, man, wow. That's hard to say because, I'm still looking for one LJN wrestling figure, the Ultimate Warrior, and I'm not paying $900 for him. It's just not happening.
That's the thing. You'll look, I'll look and it's like, okay, I want all of this collection. But then there are some items that's like way too much money. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm not
it's like,
that much.
Oh, you want this collection with the Warlord? Well, that makes it an extra $1,000.
Right. It's like,
these are toys, man. You know?
That's okay.
Like, and that's what has been so wonderful about the show is I have partnered, and my producers, the guys who actually make the show, it's not me. I can do this and all that silly, all the voices and all that stuff, but I cannot make a television show. The guys who make Hunting Nostalgia, they're in New York City. The name of their company is the Toy Store Guide. And so what they are is they're an interactive database of all of the vintage toy stores across the country. So if you're in Wichita, Kansas, you could say, man, I'd really like to do some vintage toy shopping, you know? Boom, Wichita, Kansas has 3 vintage toy stores all within your driving distance. That's how we became such a partnership because they know that these toys are all going to these vintage toy stores.
Yeah.
You know?
I've been on. I discovered that website because of you, and I got on it, and because I'm always looking, it's like, yeah, where are these toy stores? And yeah, you mentioned D&E around here, and Pop Culture.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's great. It's like, oh wow, this is a great list of all the toy stores around the country. That's awesome.
Exactly. And if you type in, like, if you just bring up your camera phone now and you type in toy store, Target comes up, and it's like, I know where Target is. Like, that's
Right,
not
right.
like, and then you're like, oh wait, Kohl's, that's not a toy store. And you're searching through. None of them are toy stores. It's Walmart.
Right.
It's like, but this
Yeah.
way, toystoreguide.com, boom, it's awesome. And not only that, they have pictures, like 3D pictures of the store.
Yeah.
Awesome. Really cool.
Yeah. And just watch old episodes of your show, because you go to some crazy places. Like apparently there was an old one downtown. It's now an art gallery, but you
Oh,
got into their vault.
oh yeah, yes, and there's another one, the most famous antique store actually I have ever seen in my life, Crown Antiques. It's right next to Console, but I believe it's closed. Yeah, it's right next to Console Energy Center, where where the Super Bowl is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like 4 or 5 doors down from that, but I think it's closed. The man who owned it, he got very sick, okay? And he has more items in that place. I found the #1 WWF wrestling magazine. #1 with
The
Jimmy Superfly
first.
on it. #1.
Wow.
And he didn't even know it was there. I'm like, how much for these magazines? He's like, he looks over. He was he's like a 7 foot tall Jewish man. He looks over, he goes, oh, that's a good one. I'm like, yeah, it is. He's like, but he knew. He's like, that's a good one. And I'm like, you know your stuff. I mean, how does this guy know wrestling?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it was incredible. Yeah, I got locked in a vault, acting like a fool. I got locked in. That was real. As soon as I did it, as soon as I closed the door, I could see the terror in their eyes. They're like, no. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I get. You know what I mean? Being a
That
weird.
was so funny. You're like, hey, I'm locked in here. Like, yeah, I
I
don't know if
was
this is all that funny.
no, dude, I was freaking out. And then they're like, they let it go for a while. That's why we turned it into like a black and white, like 1920s film. But like they let me worry for a while, and then they're like, there's an escape hatch. So I had to climb out of the top. I had to
Oh
climb out.
my goodness.
It's crazy. It was an old PNC bank. It was nuts.
What about video games? Do you collect old video games and stuff?
Oh yeah, I love NES is my favorite regular. As we called it, regular Nintendo. Because then Super Nintendo came out, and then you had Super and regular. But yeah, like you asked before, everything I have here, and this is something my kids will play with. Everything that I have in the Honey Nostalgia Studio is to be played with.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
it's all ready to roll. Here's the Super Nintendo. Oh, I have so many weird things. This is a golden ticket from Willy Wonka from Mike TV. The actual.
Wow.
Yeah, he's online. He's a really nice man. He found the show, and he sent me a message. He said he was giving away these golden tickets for like different reasons. Like somebody would do something nice for the community, he would give them an autographed golden ticket. He saw my show, and I was doing a show about the community, and he reached out. He's like, hey, I would like to send you a Willy Wonka golden ticket. So I'm like, of course. Like, and it's an actual, it says everything on it. Greetings to you, the lucky finder of this golden ticket from Mr. Willy Wonka.
That's so cool.
It's neat. It's neat. And the show is not only about toys, it's about all kinds of stuff,
Yeah. So there's more episodes coming up, right?
Yes. We are in a log jam right now. My producers just moved from one part of New York City to another part of New York City. And all of our production stuff is getting unpacked. But we have 3 episodes coming, and they're all about vintage toy stores. And they're filmed in New York City. They're super cool. They should be ready, seriously, like the next 2 or 3 days. They'll be ready to be out on television and also on YouTube.
I was getting worried because I haven't seen any new episodes in a few months. Like, what happened?
No, nothing. I'm just, it's just a log jam. I promise they're coming. promise. Very soon. I've been working with a couple different companies, like the Nacelle company. I was doing some promotional filming for a new project they have coming out, which I can't talk about yet, but it's super cool. Nacelle is the company that makes the toys that made us, the movies that made us on Netflix. They know toys better than anybody in the world. They do. They just do, period. But yeah, they're coming. I promise they're coming very, very soon. They're already filmed and almost ready.
Isn't it fun just finding out about new things that you had no idea about? It's so much fun. And there's so much out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like Star Wars, for instance. Like I love Star Wars. I was obsessed, absolutely obsessed. But until I started meeting these like super Star Wars collectors, I call them Star Wars jocks. Meeting these guys, like they tell me things that I never knew. Like so many different things about Boba Fett and his original figure and the different spring mechanisms and the reason they stopped selling them and where you can find them and all that stuff. And, this one says made in Taiwan. Why does that make this one different that says it was made in Korea? You know what I mean? Like there's so many different little intricacies about them. And I always wondered as I was a kid, I was like, this does not look like Han Solo. I'm like, who is this guy? Huge head. He doesn't look like Harrison Ford. And I'm like, none of these guys look like the characters. Like, this doesn't look like Carrie Fisher. This doesn't look like Mark Hamill. Like, what's the deal? And they did that on purpose. So they had no obligation to pay those actors for their likenesses. And I'm like, holy crap, that's crazy. But it's true. I'm like, whoa,
That's funny.
That's neat stuff.
That's funny. Yeah, there you go. I mean, because I love when I'm looking for Star Wars stuff, the 70s, and then the original, the things from like 77 to 83. But then they make things that are like new. It looks like it's from back then, but it's actually from this year or something like that, which is a little annoying, but still, it's still pretty cool.
Here's what I like and I dislike about that. Okay, like they repopped Ghostbusters, they repopped Ninja Turtles, they repopped Star Wars. Well, the reason for that is because when those things all originally came out, okay, it was a very, very interesting era in our country. Okay, starting at 1980, what was happening with maybe in the 70s as well, late 70s, early 80s. What happened was, what do we have going on? Well, everything is so expensive now in the United States. Both mom and dad have to work. Crap. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do to keep these kids busy? That's why I call the era of our toys the keep these kids busy era, because they created all of the most amazing things with the sole intention of selling them to us. They're like, we got to have something that's going to explode for these kids. Masters of the Universe was the very start of that. Like, it's like, we are going to, boom, we're going to give you cereal. We're going to give you lunch boxes. We're going to give you, and we were all kept busy by that. That's why that's what you find in Target.
And Transformers. We look back now, and when we see those, as kids, when we watch those cartoons, we thought, oh my God, Optimus Prime is fighting the Decepticons. This is awesome. Meanwhile, they're just giant toy commercials.
I know, you're right. Yes, they were. But how lucky were we? That's what, like G.I. Joe, like, I love this show. It's a walking, talking commercial, but I love it. I have a prime example of what you're referring to, okay? When we were, younger, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were on TV. Everybody loved the Turtles. Well, what was so unique about the Turtles was they were a fairly graphic a comic book, you know what I mean? And then they're like, let's make these for little kids, okay? So then they made them. Sorry, I have them in here. I have all my bed sheets from whenever I was a kid in this.
No way.
Yeah, all of them. So this is what's funny about the Ninja Turtles. Here, we'll use this one for example. The Ninja Turtles, we all know what they look like from the cartoon, right? We all know exactly what they look like. And we all know that their figures, their toys were a little bit different. And the toys, they all had the same color weapons. They were all that brown, and they were all in those different poses. Well, they made bed sheets, and you would think they would put on the characters from the cartoon, right? Why not? Nah, they put the action figures on the bed sheets. These are the Ninja Turtle action figures.
Totally.
And they wanted you
Totally.
going to sleep dreaming about buying these action figures. Now, why would they do such a thing? Look at Leo. Those are toys. Those are not cartoons. Isn't that funny?
That's so funny. Oh, my
Everybody wanted
goodness.
these. They're like, oh, I want to sleep on the Ninja Turtles. Advertising for the toys. You know, it's just that's what we were lucky enough to have. Now, kids can buy stuff from the 80s, but they don't know the real backstory. Like, they don't have the cartoons like we had, you know? It's different,
Yeah.
different dynamic for sure.
Yeah. It's funny. And also, back in the 80s with the wrestling, the wrestlers, I mean, those guys worked like two, three matches a day. They
Oh,
work
yeah.
like, but then when the toy lines came out, they would make like peanuts wrestling, but then they would get these massive merchandise checks from the toys,
Oh,
toy
yeah.
sales. It was amazing.
It's
like,
it was genius. Genius.
Yeah.
That's why Hulk Hogan was struggling for cash. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was a different time. We were really, really lucky. So that's what I try to push that experience off through the show. Like, I try to, and anybody who sees me, they pretty much know, hey, that's that toy guy, like, even if you don't really watch the show and you live in the Pittsburgh area, I'll pop up in different forms on commercials. I was on KDK a few,
oh my God, with Heather Abraham. I saw that.
Yeah, she is awesome. I'll tell you this, she is just as nice off camera as she is on.
Oh my God.
She's
She
awesome.
is such a sweetheart. I've talked to her a couple times in person. There was actually a time where I just wanted, like they had a toy drive or something like that. So I dropped off some stuff, and I'm shy. I'm afraid to approach people. And she ran up to me. It's like, I know you. And she gave me a big hug. I'm like, oh my God, you're so nice. She is the nicest person.
And it's real. It's all real. I mean, that is just who she is. I'm like, holy,
Yeah,
she's considerably younger than me as well. And one of my younger cousins went to high school with her. And they said, you know what? Heather has been that exact same person since ninth grade. That's who I want to be. You know what I mean? I want people to be like, this dude is the same on camera as off camera. That's what everyone should strive for.
There was an episode you had where you walk into the room. It was just like Mr. Rogers. And I'm thinking, I wonder if that was on purpose. And then I saw you talking to the drummer. I was like, you're a big Mr. Rogers person. You did that on purpose.
100%. 100%. I nod because he was doing things the right way. Fred Rogers was such a unique character. And the stories that I heard, I'm allowed to tell some on TV and some I wasn't allowed to tell on television. But that I wanted to know, and I asked Bobby Rossthorn, I said, Bobby, I said, from you, I said, just personally you, what is the most incredible thing that you experienced working with Fred Rogers for 34 years? He goes, simple. He goes, it's so easy. He goes, I worked with that man every day for 34 years, and he never said a swear word once, ever. Like, he never got frustrated and said, oh, what the hell? Like, never once. I'm like, that's incredible. So he did practice what he preached. And I said, that's interesting. I said, because the cameraman I have on my show, he likes to swear nonstop. So I said, and I don't do that. I said to him, how would Fred Rogers react to someone like that? Like, how would he react to someone he was swearing like a drunken sailor? And I'll never forget it. He goes, exactly how you would expect Fred Rogers to react. He said he never let it influence how he felt about that person. Like, if you were swearing every other word, Fred Rogers didn't think you were a scumbag, He just knew that you were different than him. And it was incredible to hear that. Incredible to hear that, because I'm very much so that same way.
He was a living saint. He was just like the best person. And then, like, I cry every time I think of him. Like, I see one of his episodes or something like that. And I was so excited when my daughter was little to introduce her to Mr. Rogers and stuff, and
how cool
world.
Because the little kids now watch Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, the cartoon. And think of this, literally, Mr. Fred Rogers invented Daniel Tiger with a sock. And he invented him because PBS, the public broadcasting system that we would watch Fred Rogers on, everything they had was a donation. Like, Their cameras were donated, their lights were donated, everything was donated. So everything was really low quality, including the film, the actual film that they used to record the show. So there would be times where there was a live studio audience, and the film itself would snap, like it would break, and then you would have to completely take that off and re-put different film reels on. Well, that took a lot of time. And Fred told the guys, he says, I have to find something to entertain these kids with if something like this happens. Like if my film breaks, I want to entertain them somehow. One day he went in the back, he grabbed his sock off of his foot, and he popped it through a piece of paper, and he said, hello, I'm Daniel Tiger. That's how Daniel Tiger, just because he didn't want those kids to lose interest and be bored. How cool is that?
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you could go to I think it's the Heinz History Center. You could see the sets and oh yeah, he was the best.
It is. We're Pittsburgh is awesome. It is awesome, awesome place. And if you're not from here, you probably don't know. But it is awesome. There are so many things that are incredible about Pittsburgh.
I've lived here all my life. This, various places around the Pittsburgh area. I lived here all my life, so that's all I know. But I can't imagine any other place being like here.
No, I can't either. Nope. This is. I'll give you another little story. This is very funny. Pittsburgh is such a small group of people. Okay, there was a Penguins production meeting one morning. The Pittsburgh Penguins, my favorite team in the world. Okay, and during that meeting, somehow, some way, talk of needing a VCR came up. The old 2-9er, the man we all know and love, the old 2-9er.
Phil Bourque.
He's partying all summer, baby. Like Phil Bourque needed a VCR. Okay, he needed it for his daughter for a high school project about North Korea. So the only way he could watch a certain documentary was on this old archaic piece of equipment called a VCR, and he didn't have one. Well, my good buddy is Brian Metzer of the Penguins, and he's like, hey, old 2-9er, he's like, I know just the guy to call. And so I answer my phone. He goes, hey, Nick. I'm like, hey. He goes, it's the old 2-9er. What? Like, it's Phil Bourque. I'm like, okay. He goes, I heard you're the man I'm looking for. I'm like, yeah, I guess. He goes, do you have an old VCR for me? So after a home game, I drove to his house. I drove out to Phil Bourque's house. It was pouring down rain. And I get out. I put the VCR underneath my shirt, and I'm walking over to him. And he's in his basement. He has his suit on still from being at the arena. And he goes, man, he goes, this is cool. He goes, I can't believe it. And I said, Borky, I said, I had a big Hulk Hogan sticker, and I put it on top, and I said, you'll always remember it was me. He's a cool dude. He's so cool. So cool.
That's so cool. Wow. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Everybody, you need to get those YouTube numbers up. Everybody subscribe to Hunting Nostalgia on YouTube. You gotta get at least 1,000 subscribers. Come on.
I know, and it's my fault partially because I don't really understand that world. I always wanted to create a TV show, and I did that, and I was pleased. But yes, I am not against begging. Ask my wife. Constantly beg. Please, all of you out there in Joey Bag of Donuts world, please subscribe to this Toy Sniffing Weirdos YouTube channel. Please. I would really appreciate it. Dude, I could talk to you all day.
Oh God, we haven't even scratched the surface of what. Hey, do you watch wrestling now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Me too, a little bit. I go back and forth, but
that would be fun.
Oh yeah. There's a million things we could talk about. Okay.
Well, let's do it again soon. How about that?
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. All right. Hey, thanks so much. It was great meeting you.
You too, Joey. Thanks. I appreciate it very much. I love your Twitter, man. It's great. It is so great. Love it.
All right. I'll see you.
See you, man.